3 years. 3 freaking years of living with a man who barely said more than good morning and pass the salt. You'd think marriage to a billionaire would come with private jets, candlelit dinners, and at least one stolen kiss under the moonlight. Nope. Not for me. Princess Amara of Udine, diplomatic daughter turned glorified roommate. My husband, Lee, was everything people dream about: tall, graceful, devastatingly handsome in that cold, kdrama way. But to me, he might as well have been a ghost in a 3-piece suit. Every night he'd come home, nod politely, and disappear into his room like I carried some contagious disease. I tried everything: small talk, movie nights, even showing up in silk pajamas that my sister swore were marriage-saver material. Nothing worked. So here I was at midnight, sitting cross-legged on our California king bed, laptop glowing in front of me, typing best divorce lawyers for international marriages. The royal court back home would freak out if I filed. My little sister, Zara, had already rolled her eyes when I mentioned it last week. Girl, you married a billionaire and you're complaining? Be serious. Yeah, easy for her to say. She wasn't the one living in a luxury mansion that felt like a frozen museum. I sighed, scrolling through boring legal websites until a random blog headline caught my eye. Help. I'm a Korean man married to a beautiful black woman, but I'm scared my desire will ruin everything. I blinked. Okay, weird. But relatable title. Curiosity won. I clicked. The post was long, raw, and a little heartbreaking. The guy talked about how his wife was kind and gorgeous, but he was terrified of losing control, of hurting her or scaring her off. So, instead of getting close, he kept avoiding her. It sounded stupid, but painfully familiar. I scrolled down to check the date. My stomach flipped. Posted 3 years ago. The day of our wedding. No way, I whispered. There was absolutely no way this was Min Jae. Right? Still, my heart wouldn't calm down. The more I read, the more I saw little details that felt too close, like how she hums while cutting mangoes. I do that, and her perfume smells like coconut and jasmine, mine exactly. I laughed nervously. I've officially lost it. But that night, instead of closing the laptop, I called Zara. Quick question, I said when she picked up, half asleep. Do cold-looking men ever have a soft side? She groaned. Oh my God, Amara. Is this about your ice statue husband again? Just answer. Maybe. Or maybe they're aliens. Go to bed. Click. Fine. I'd handle this myself. I scrolled to the most recent blog post. 3 days ago. She's growing distant. I think she's done with me. I don't know what to do. Something in my chest ached. Maybe I was crazy, but I typed a reply from a fake account anyway. Maybe you should make her breakfast. Food breaks the ice better than words sometimes. I hit send, rolled my eyes at myself, and went to bed. The smell of eggs and coffee woke me up. For a second, I thought I was dreaming until I saw him. Min Jae. In the kitchen. Making breakfast. He was dressed in a crisp black shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair still damp from a shower. My heart did this stupid flip. I made too much, he said, not looking at me. You should eat. Thanks, I said, sliding into a chair. He nodded, then actually sat across from me, like this was normal. Like he hadn't spent 3 years avoiding me like I was the plague. So, how's work? I asked cautiously. Fine, he said, voice softer than usual. And yours? I almost choked on my toast. He'd never asked that before. Busy, I managed. Editing a romance novel, actually. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Guilt? I couldn't tell. He just nodded, finished his coffee, and quietly left for work. As soon as the door shut, I ran back to my laptop. The blogger had replied. Thank you. It worked. She smiled at me this morning. What else should I do? I grinned. Oh my God. It's him. Still, I couldn't resist playing along. I started replying more often, sometimes giving him romantic tips, sometimes being sarcastic just to see what he'd do. And every time I did, Min Jae changed a little. He started bringing flowers, making small jokes, even sitting next to me while I watched K-dramas, pretending not to care. I didn't know if I was helping my husband or a total stranger, but for the first time, it felt like I wasn't invisible.
Until the night he caught me.
I was typing another reply, something cheeky about trying couple massages, when his reflection appeared behind me. My fingers froze. I turned slowly. He was standing there, face blank, eyes dark. "You," he said quietly. "It was you all along." My throat went dry. Min Jae,
He didn't yell.
Didn't say another word. He just walked out. Minutes later, the blog was gone. And by morning, there were divorce papers on the table.
I didn't sleep that night.
I just sat there, staring at the cold stack of divorce papers on the table like they were staring back at me. The ink at the bottom said Min Jae Lee, but the emptiness behind it screamed louder than his name ever could. 3 years of silence. 3 weeks of fragile hope. And now this. I still hadn't moved. The coffee I poured was cold, untouched. When he finally came downstairs, his steps were too quiet, too controlled, the kind that said he'd already made up his mind.
He didn't look at me.
Just placed his phone on the counter, reached for a cup, and said in that calm voice of his, "You should sign them. I'll handle everything else." That's it? That's how our marriage ends? Something in me snapped.
Why?
He paused, his hand tightening on the cup. "You know why." "No, I really don't," I said, standing up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. All I did was try to talk to my husband, the same man who couldn't even sit through a breakfast without acting like I was contagious. He finally turned to face me. Cold eyes, hard jawline, but the tremble in his fingers betrayed him. "You made a fool out of me." I blinked. "What?"
You found the blog. You knew it was me.
"And you," he exhaled sharply, eyes dark with something between anger and shame. "You used it. To make me do stupid things. To manipulate me." "Manipulate?" I laughed, but it came out broken. "You think I was manipulating you because I told you to make your wife breakfast? Because I told you to talk to me?" His jaw clenched. "You could have told me you knew. You didn't have to play along." "Oh, you mean like how you could have told me you were scared? That you actually felt something?" I shot back, voice rising. "Instead, you wrote your feelings to strangers online while I was right here, begging for scraps of your attention." The air between us was thick enough to choke on. He stared at me for a long moment, the way someone looks at something fragile right before it breaks. "I didn't know how to love you without ruining you," he said quietly. "You were too good, too bright. And he trailed off. "I didn't want to be the man who hurt you." "Then why did you marry me, Min Jae?" I whispered. "Because it sure as hell wasn't for love." His silence said everything. My chest burned. "Fine." I grabbed the pen, my hand trembling. "If that's how little you think of me, then let's make it official." I signed my name. The sound of the pen scratching against paper felt final, brutal, like the end of a heartbeat. I pushed the papers toward him.
"There.
You're free." He didn't move at first, just stared at the signature like it was something poisonous. Then slowly, he picked up the papers and tore them in half. Then again, and again, until the shreds scattered across the floor like snow. I stood frozen. "What are you doing?" He looked up, eyes stormy and unreadable. "I'm not letting you go like this." "You just said." "I said I was a fool," he cut in, voice rough. "But if you're going to hate me, you'll hate me while I fight for you." I didn't even know what to say. My throat tightened, tears burning behind my eyes. So I did the only thing I could. I turned around and walked away. Straight to my room. Door slammed. Lock clicked. And then silence. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or laugh. The walls felt too small for how much my heart hurt. Hours passed. I must have fallen asleep at some point because when I woke up, sunlight was spilling through the curtains. My head throbbed. My body ached from crying. And then I smelled it again.
Coffee, toast, and roses?
I sat up slowly. The door creaked open. He stood there in a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, holding a tray of food and a small vase with 3 pink roses. His eyes looked softer than I'd ever seen them. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly. Romance.
Talking.
Any of it. But I want to learn with you. I just stared at him. Why now? Because last night I realized I've already lost you 1,000 times by staying silent. I don't want to lose you again by choice. He walked closer, setting the tray down beside me. I was scared, he continued. Scared I'd hurt you, that I wasn't enough. But the truth is, you've been the only thing I've wanted since the day I met you. My throat tightened. You don't have to say this out of guilt. He shook his head. It's not guilt. It's love. Messy, late, and probably unpolished, but it's real. I should have said something clever or sarcastic, but my heart was too full. My eyes stung too much.
So, I just nodded.
Slowly. He exhaled in relief, as if that single gesture meant everything. Then I'll start over, he said softly. This time, I'll chase you properly. And he did. That morning marked the beginning of something new. If someone told me a month ago that Min Jae Lee, my painfully stoic, emotionally constipated husband, would one day court me like a K-drama male lead, I would have laughed until I cried. But here we were. After that morning, the breakfast, the apology, the trembling words, everything changed. Not suddenly, not magically, but quietly, like winter finally giving way to spring. He started small, always small. The first week I noticed it. My coffee mug, the pink one that said Editor Queen, was already filled by the time I came downstairs. Just the way I liked it. A splash of milk. 1 spoon of sugar.
He didn't say anything. Didn't even look at me.
But every morning it was there. Steam rising, like an unspoken good morning. The first day I said thank you, he froze like I'd spoken a spell. Then he gave this tiny nod, awkward, almost shy, and left for work. That tiny gesture did something to me. I started smiling more. Not because of the coffee, but because it meant he noticed. The second week, he asked, out of nowhere, "What brand of cereal do you like?" I blinked. Why? I'm going shopping. You? In a grocery store? He cleared his throat.
Yes.
I can shop. He could not, in fact, shop. When he came back, he bought 3 boxes of the wrong cereal, 5 flavors of ramen, and 12 packs of marshmallows. Why marshmallows? I asked, laughing. He looked genuinely confused. They looked comforting. I swear I fell in love a little right there. That night, I roasted marshmallows on the gas stove while he sat beside me, pretending not to enjoy it. But when I offered one to him, he took it and smiled.
Just barely.
But I saw it. 2 weeks later, he came to my office, aka the couch, in a black hoodie, yes, hoodie, and said, "Let's go out." I looked up from my laptop, blinking. Out? Like outside?
Yes.
For food. I nearly choked. You mean to date? He coughed lightly. If you want to call it that. We ended up at a tiny street market, the kind that smelled like grilled meat and fried dumplings. He kept trying to act normal, but it was so obvious he was out of his comfort zone. When I took a bite of tteokbokki and accidentally smeared sauce on my cheek, he reached out, hesitated, then gently wiped it away with his thumb. His fingers lingered for a second too long. My heart forgot how to function. Neither of us said a word. But the silence was different this time.
Softer.
Later that night, he texted me from the living room. "You look beautiful when you laugh." I read it 10 times before replying. "You could just tell me that in person, you know?" His response came a minute later. "I'm practicing." It was raining one evening when I went out for a walk. I didn't tell him. I just needed air. The drizzle turned heavy halfway down the block, and I groaned, regretting every life decision. Then I heard footsteps. And there he was, no jacket, just holding an umbrella, hair getting drenched, eyes locked on me. "You forgot this," he said simply, tilting it over me. "You didn't have to come out." He shrugged, raindrops running down his cheek. "You always forget your umbrella." We walked home in silence, our shoulders brushing occasionally. My pulse was ridiculous. Before we went inside, I mumbled, "You're soaked." "So are you," he said, eyes soft. but you look happy." I didn't even realize I was smiling until he said it. By the third month, he had learned something vital. I loved books more than sleep. So one night, he appeared in the doorway of our home library holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "You've been in here for hours," he said. "You should rest." "Just one more chapter," I said automatically. He sat beside me on the couch, picked up a random book, and pretended to read. 20 minutes later, he was asleep, head tilted against my shoulder. His hair smelled faintly like cedar and soap. I didn't move, not even when my arm went numb, because for once, he wasn't pulling away. My birthday had always been quiet, usually forgotten in the chaos of royal meetings or diplomatic dinners. That morning, he said nothing. No happy birthday. No hints. I told myself not to care. But when I got home from a coffee run, the entire dining room was glowing, fairy lights everywhere, candles flickering, and a small cake sitting in the center of the table. The icing said, "To my wife, the one who made silence sound like peace." He stood there, awkwardly holding a single balloon, his face half hidden behind it. Surprise? I burst out laughing, then crying at the same time. He looked terrified. "I wasn't sure if you'd like it," he said quickly. "Or the balloon. Or the lights." I Googled it. I hugged him before he could say more. "It's perfect." And for the first time, he hugged me back without hesitation. Our first real kiss didn't happen during a fight or an emotional confession. It happened on a random night when he walked into the living room and found me dancing barefoot to an old R&B playlist. "Join me," I said, laughing. He looked horrified. "I don't dance." "Then just stand there and sway." I grabbed his hand before he could refuse, placed it against my waist. His breath hitched, but he didn't pull away. We moved slowly, clumsily, under the dim light. His palm fit against my back like it belonged there. When the song faded, he didn't let go. Neither did I. He looked down at me, eyes soft but intense. "If I kiss you now, I might not stop." I smiled, heart hammering. "Then don't." And he didn't. It wasn't fireworks, it was warmth. Years of cold melting into something tender, alive, real. That night, we didn't need words. The silence finally meant love. Each little thing he did wasn't grand or cinematic. It was awkward, slow, and human, but it was love. His version of it. And somehow, it became ours. Love is easy when it's just you, him, and the smell of burnt pancakes at 7 a.m. But when you're married to a billionaire and technically a princess, nothing stays private for long. Our relationship had been quietly rebuilding for months. Late-night cocoa, slow dances, inside jokes that no one would understand. It was fragile but beautiful, something I wanted to protect. And then the royal office called. "Your Highness, there will be an official charity gala in Seoul next week. You and Mr. Lee are both expected to attend." Translation: smile. Pretend your marriage is perfect. Wear something expensive. I hung up, turned to where Min Jae was reading on the couch, and groaned. "We've been summoned by the people who think romance is a PR stunt." He looked up calmly. "The royal gala?" The one with cameras. And reporters. And your ex probably lurking somewhere pretending to donate to charity." He raised an eyebrow. "You sound jealous." "Please. I'm allergic to drama." He smirked. "Says the woman who made me court her with marshmallows and rainstorms." Touché. I hated how good he looked in a tux. It was unfair. The man had no right to walk beside me looking like every heartbreak song ever written. As the cameras flashed, his hand brushed mine. My pulse jumped. He noticed. Of course he did. And his lips twitched in that tiny, private smile that still made my stomach flip. We walked the carpet like a couple who had it all figured out, but inside, my nerves were doing cartwheels. The last time we'd been this public, we could barely stand near each other without freezing the air. Now, the air burned. Inside the ballroom, chandeliers shimmered like constellations. People stared, whispered, judged. Halfway through the night, a reporter cornered me with that plastic smile of doom. "Princess Amara, The world's been curious about your marriage. You two seem closer lately. What changed? Every head turned. Cameras clicked. My throat dried. Before I could stutter through an answer, Min Jae stepped forward, hand sliding around my waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. She stopped giving up on me, he said simply. And I finally started trying. The crowd went silent. Someone actually gasped. I stared at him, speechless. He just squeezed my waist lightly and whispered, "You always save me. Might as well make it public." My chest felt too full. "You're ridiculous," I whispered back. "But charming," he murmured. "Barely." The rest of the evening, he didn't leave my side. He poured me wine, made sure I ate, and even laughed. When I teased him about dancing again. When the music started, I thought he'd refuse. But then he extended his hand, expression serious. "May I?" I blinked. "Are you sure you want to do this in front of actual humans?" He smirked. "For you, yes." The crowd faded. It was just us, swaying under the lights. His hand was steady on my back, his eyes soft and certain. "This feels dangerous," I whispered. "Then it's real," he said. The next morning, our pictures were everywhere. Headlines like, "The Ice Billionaire Melts for His Princess." From diplomacy to desire, the couple everyone misjudged. Zara called me screaming, "You're trending. You and your fine man are trending." I nearly dropped my phone.
What?
Why? Because you two look like a movie trailer for emotional redemption. I groaned. I hate the internet. "No, babe," she said, giggling. "You love him." And the internet just noticed. But later that night, when the lights were off and the mansion was quiet, he came into the room looking unsure again. "What's wrong?" I asked softly. He hesitated. "I keep thinking about what people said before. That I didn't deserve you." I stood up, crossing the space between us. "Maybe you didn't. But that was before." He looked down at me, eyes shadowed with doubt. "And now?" "Now," I said, taking his hand, "you're mine. And I'm yours. And we're both still learning." He didn't reply, just kissed my forehead, then rested his against mine like he was memorizing the moment. "You're the only risk I ever wanted to take," he whispered. And that night, we didn't need words, promises, or headlines. Just the quiet truth that love, real love, is something you build, one clumsy, honest step at a time. By the time we fell asleep, I realized something. I didn't just have my husband back. I finally had my home. One afternoon, he came home early, surprising me in the kitchen. "I heard you like sunflowers," he said, setting down a small potted one. "Not a bouquet. I thought they'd last longer if you took care of them yourself." I laughed because it was awkward and adorable at the same time. "I didn't think you noticed what I liked," I said softly. He shrugged, looking away. "I notice everything. I just didn't know what to do with it before." We began to take small walks in the park nearby, hand brushing hand, silence turning into soft laughter. Once, he tried to make samgyeopsal for dinner and nearly set off the smoke alarm. We ended up eating takeout on the floor, giggling like college students. On another date, he took me to an art exhibit. He didn't say much, but he stood close enough that I could feel the warmth of his sleeve brushing mine. At one point, he whispered, "She looks like you," pointing to a portrait of a woman with deep brown skin and wild curls, her eyes fierce and gentle all at once. I smiled. "You think so?" He nodded. "She looks like someone who doesn't realize she's being loved." My heart stuttered. He was awkward and shy, yes, but there was sincerity in every glance, every hesitant word, every little attempt. He began to touch me more, brushing my hair from my face, guiding me across the street with a hand at my lower back, letting his fingers linger when passing me something. Each touch was a confession. One night it happened. It wasn't planned. It was raining, one of those soft, slow rains that made the city lights blur like watercolor. I was standing by the balcony, wrapped in one of his oversized shirts, watching the rain trace lines on the glass. He came up behind me quietly, his reflection joining mine. "You'll get cold," he murmured. "I'm fine," I whispered, my voice trembling more from nerves than chill. When I turned, his eyes were on me, soft, searching, scared. His hand came up, hesitated, then cupped my face like I was something fragile. I don't want to hurt you, he breathed. You won't, I whispered back, fingers curling into his shirt. You already did when you stayed away, but you can stop now. That broke something in him. The kiss started hesitant, then deepened, slow and trembling, like years of restraint melting into one shared breath. He touched me as though memorizing every sigh, every shiver, every quiet please that slipped past my lips. The night became a blur of warmth and tenderness, of whispered names and quiet laughter between kisses. He was gentle, reverent even, as though he couldn't believe I was real, that I was his. When we finally fell asleep tangled together, his heartbeat was steady beneath my ear. The next morning, I could barely move without wincing, not from pain, but from the intensity of it all. He panicked immediately. Did I hurt you? His voice was frantic, hands fluttering helplessly. I laughed, wincing and blushing. No, you didn't. You just didn't hold back, that's all. Relief flooded his face, followed by a boyish, embarrassed smile. I guess I forgot moderation, he muttered. That's fine, I teased softly, leaning up to kiss him. I waited 3 years for that. I think I can forgive you, he chuckled, wrapping me gently in his arms, murmuring something in Korean I didn't understand, but I felt it. From that morning, something shifted between us. The silence that once separated us turned into comfort, laughter, and shared breath. He still brought me breakfast sometimes, but now it came with a kiss on my neck and a whispered, "Stay in bed a little longer." And I did, because after all the distance, all the fear, and all the heartbreak, we'd finally found our forever. Passionate, imperfect,
Real.
If someone had told me 3 months ago that I'd be waking up every morning to breakfast, kisses, and a man who looked at me like I was the sunrise itself, I'd have laughed in their face. But here I was. 3 years of cold stares, polite nods, and good night, mumbled through a door, replaced by warmth. Literal and emotional. The first week after that night was like living inside a cheesy kdrama that I'd secretly written for myself. He couldn't keep his hands off me, and not in the cliché way. He'd brush my hair back, tie my apron when I was cooking, or press a kiss to my temple before heading to work. Sometimes he'd just stare, like he couldn't quite believe I was real. And every time I caught him, he'd look away too late. One morning, I walked into the kitchen to find him wearing an apron, my apron, the one with the words "Queen of the Kitchen" in gold letters. He was flipping pancakes with all the focus of a brain surgeon. "Are you cooking again?" I asked, trying not to laugh. He turned, dead serious. "I wanted to make you breakfast." I peeked at the pan. "That's sweet. But, the pancake was black. Entirely." His shoulders sagged. I followed the video. The video didn't say to cook it on volcano level.
He groaned.
"You're laughing at me." I grinned, wrapping my arms around his waist from behind. "Only a little, but it's the thought that counts." He relaxed instantly, turning to press a kiss against my forehead. "Then I'll just keep thinking of you," he said softly. I swear my heart melted. Later that day, he texted me from work, something he never did before. "I saw strawberries at the market. Should I buy some for you?" Me. "You remembered I like strawberries?" "I remember everything. Even the things you think I don't." I had to take a minute to clutch my phone and scream into a pillow. Then came my sister. The one person I had refused to tell the truth about my marriage because she would have made it a whole reality show. She came to visit unannounced, in her words, to make sure you're not wasting away with that emotionally unavailable statue of a man. Except the moment she entered, he was in the kitchen again.
Cooking.
Wearing a fitted shirt, sleeves rolled up, focused and calm. Her jaw dropped. "Wait, hold on. Is that your husband? Cooking? For you?" I try to play cool. "Yeah, he does that sometimes." She turned to me, dramatic as ever. "What did you do to him? Exorcism? Witchcraft?" Or did you threaten him with a divorce and he panicked? I snorted. Something like that. He brought us tea, hot, carefully made, with little honey sticks on the side, and my sister looked ready to faint. Then, right in front of her, he leaned down and kissed my cheek before sitting beside me. The sound my sister made could only be described as a dying bird crossed with a scream. "Oh my God. He's touching you. He's being cute," she yelled. He blinked, confused. "Should I not be?" She gasped. "No, sir. You absolutely should."
Continue.
"Ignore me." I was red. He was red. But her dramatics didn't faze him much. He actually smiled a little. When she finally left, I turned to him, still laughing. "You handled her well." He nodded. "She loves you. I respect that. But she's loud." I giggled. That's an understatement. He reached for me, brushing his thumb over my cheek. "You laugh more now," he said quietly. "I like it." I froze, because there it was again. That sincerity. That soft tone that made my chest ache in the best way. So I leaned in, kissed him softly, and whispered, "Then don't stop giving me reasons to laugh." He smiled against my lips.
Deal.
The weeks rolled by like that. Small gestures, unspoken affection, growing warmth. He'd show up at my home office with tea and a kiss. Sometimes he'd just sit nearby while I worked, quietly reading or sketching. One evening, I found his sketchbook open on the table. He'd drawn me, laughing, frowning, sleeping, with little notes beside each one. Under one drawing it said, "My favorite sound is when she says my name softly." I think I fell in love all over again that night. We still had our awkward moments. Sometimes he'd fumble compliments. Sometimes I'd tease him until he turned pink. But the love was real. Tender.
Alive.
Our story had started with silence, but now, every look, every laugh, every heartbeat between us spoke louder than words ever could. He didn't tell me where we were going, just packed a small bag, took my hand, and said, "You need a break." 2 hours later, we were standing by a quiet lake house tucked in the hills, wooden floors, soft light, silence thick enough to hear our hearts beat. "It's beautiful," I whispered. He smiled, faint but real. I wanted us to breathe. That weekend felt like stepping out of time. We cooked together, or tried to, ended up burning dinner again, and ordering ramen. We went on walks barefoot through the grass, talked about things that used to scare us, his fear of not being enough, my fear of being unwanted. One night by the fireplace, he finally told me everything, about how his parents' cold marriage made him think love always ended in pain, how he built walls to survive, how I scared him because I made him want to feel. I didn't interrupt, just touched his hand. "You don't have to be perfect," I said softly. "You just have to stay." He looked at me like I'd said something holy. Then he leaned in and kissed me, slow, deep, certain. There was no hesitation this time, no fear. Just warmth, laughter, tangled hands, and quiet sighs against the crackle of firelight. The next morning, I woke up with his arm draped around me, the lake glowing gold outside, and his voice rough against my skin as he whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I smiled, tracing his jaw. "Guess you were worth the wait." And for the first time, I knew he believed it too.